I'm Jesse Thompson. I'm an artist and I'm working on the Gibson Hill archive making large brush and ink drawings that are interpretations of Gibson Hill's historical photographs of Singapore. In 2022, my colleague Oh Soon-Hwa was awarded a grant to catalog and archive the Gibson Hill photographs. So this gave us access to Gibson Hill's entire catalog of work, which we didn't have before. So suddenly when she asked me to join the project, I was kind of gifted this incredible catalog of photography to look through. And the photographs are amazing. They're an incredible insight into that era of Singaporean landscape. And I was asked to make a drawing based on this. And I do drawings that are sort of almost cubist interpretations of experiences. And so given this vast catalog of work, I was able to look through the Gibson Hill archive and find the images that were most interesting to me. Not just maybe one image all the time, but sometimes like multiple images of the same scene, tracking people throughout the same scene. And I would combine those images into a single kind of collage of the experience of Gibson Hill. So when I was making this drawing, I was really trying to capture the experience of what Gibson Hill was looking at rather than to replicate one of his drawings. Well, as I looked through Gibson Hill's archive, I started to notice that there were compositions that he seemed to particularly like. They're not entirely uncommon, they're not totally unique to Gibson Hill, but for instance, deep Singaporean street scenes really seemed interesting to him. It seemed like he was walking down these streets with his camera and photographing just consistently as he walked down the same street. And then you would even notice as you look through his camera rolls that he would turn around and shoot the same street from the opposite direction. So you would start to have this sense, this three-dimensional sense of where Gibson Hill was in time and space. So I was really interested in the deep city scenes. I also noticed that Gibson Hill liked to shoot from sort of under rooftops. Like he would try to include the rooftop as a sort of strong compositional dark at the top of the composition. And these were often at an angle in the composition. So I was really interested in this because the way in which these scenes could be merged together worked really interesting with these kind of angles. So for me, I'm not looking at any one particular image trying to, like I said, replicate that. I'm more trying to look for themes and trying to find all of the important and exciting things that I see in Gibson Hill's photography and bring them into one image. So it's this sort of overwhelming experience of what Gibson Hill himself was seeing. When I was working on this project at the Vermont Studio Center, somebody came into my studio unexpectedly and took a look at it. And it was pretty early on, but I had drawn this woman and she was bent over a table and I had just finished her clothes, and the woman who walked in said, "Wow, those pants are the star of the show. They're going to be the best part of this drawing." And that made me really happy because I was like, yeah, that's probably true. Like, those are good pants. And you know, it's moments like that where that's not a story, right? Like, that's not a story with a beginning and a middle and an end, but it's an access or an entry point for anybody who's looking at this artwork to engage with it. I think whenever you start a drawing, there's always a narrative or a story you want to get across. I think that that's the nature of an artist, is to tell stories. When it comes to a drawing like this, I do get involved in the stories that I see that Gibson Hill captured in his photographs. I see people in a space moving around that space from image to image, and I get to see them interact with each other over the course of a few moments as he snaps his shutter. But for me, as I'm making the drawing, I get involved so much with the aspects of drawing, just the elements of drawing that I become interested in. And so I'm less interested in making or asking the viewer to understand the story that I'm trying to tell. I'm more interested in trying to provide a space that the viewer willingly walks into and spends time walking around in. And that's one of the things that I'm proudest of most about my drawings, is not whether they're good or bad or anything like that, but that when people look at them, they tend to look at them for quite a long time. And I think that part of it is the detail, part of it is the mark making, part of it is the overall scale of the thing. They do tend to spend quite a long time looking into them, and that to me means that they're walking around in that space. And as long as I've filled that space with enough interest, with enough texture, with enough light, with what feels like enough sound, then they'll make their own story, that their experience is their experience inside my drawing, and that's really what I aim for.